Hold on.
There we go.
There we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is Saturday morning, December 2nd. Happy December, last month of the year. Holidays coming up. We have a special guest today. Welcome, Drew. This is Drew. Randall's back, and Danny's still here. I'm still
Oh,
here.
yeah, we're still here.
Welcome, everybody. Good to see you all. Today's topic is how to find your career path in software development and choose a coding language. So pretty interesting topic. I'm sure a lot of you guys are interested in finding out what coding language you should learn, how you should figure out, what direction to go, because there's literally millions of different directions you can go in software development, right? And yeah, so let's take it
Yo,
away. Randall.
before we get started, anyone watching, let us know down in the comments if you already know your direction that you're going, or if you're confused at this point and this type of video could help you out.
Yeah, let
Yeah.
us know.
On your point too, it's funny. I remember, dude, when I was in high school and I took a web development class, it was just HTML. There was like nothing else.
Yeah.
And dude, I remember getting
Now you
back
have
into
options.
yeah, dude, when we got back into it again, like later, dude, I was like just blown away. I was like, man, there's so they just keep making more frameworks, more languages, more. It's like insane.
The
There's
Yeah.
best
so many niche things now. It's crazy.
the best HTML tag doesn't exist anymore was the blink tag. That's how old I am.
What was the blink tag? I don't know that one.
It would just blink. It literally it was the coolest tag ever, and I just put
Sick.
it everywhere, and the website would crash. Like it just didn't have enough memory. It would just try to do it. It was just
Oh man. That's pretty cool. Totally off topic, but I saw a YouTube video the other day about some Janet Jackson song that causes computers to crash. Totally off
Oh
topic.
yeah,
Talk about that
yeah. It's
another
about
time.
it.
But
It
you
had to
made
do
me
with
think about that.
what song?
it doesn't work anymore. It was on the old it was the mechanical hard drives that spin. It was a
Yeah,
certain frequency that it would hit
it's a
that would
resonant
that would
frequency.
mess it was a
Yeah.
certain laptop.
That's
I think it was might have been Toshiba. Yeah,
I'll
it
send
was
I'll send
interesting.
you the guys the link later. I'll post in the group so you guys can see it. But pretty interesting. Anyway, back to the topic. So we have like a good sort of mix of different developers here. Like myself and Danny are sort of like front end developers. I'm more on like the React side. Danny is like Python. Randall's cybersecurity. And Drew, do you want to tell us a little bit about like your experience and how you sort of like found your way to what you are now, and you can sort of share what you do now and what your expertise is, because I think it'd be helpful for people to see there's just such a vast array of different things that you can do in software development.
yeah. I'll try to give a quick overview. It's kind of a long overview.
Yeah, we only got a half hour here, so
So yeah, so originally like comes from like a kind of like a hacker mindset where basically young and was just trying to break things and learning different coding languages, older coding languages back then. And I wanted to always bridge like computers with biology. And so eventually just went to biology and then came back to computers. And this was like probably 2013 when I finally came back. And so I missed a lot. I missed a lot of like the Web 2 like explosion. Created a lot of cool stuff, but I felt like I missed a lot of stuff. And so now that I'm back in the coding realm with blockchain and seeing all this new innovation, that's where I said, hey, this is like the moment for me to try to like figure out this Web 3 frontier. And one of the things, and that's what's positioned me into blockchain where I'm currently at. But I look at it as like the reason why I'm in Web 3 and blockchain is because we are the pioneers. Everything that we're building right now is going to lay the ground for a lot of stuff to come up, and it's great. It's super cool. It's also frustrating because there's no answers. There's it's like
yeah.
ask somebody something. Like when you're in my field, you go to Google and you type in something, and it will literally say zero results. Like pretty debilitating, but luckily ChatGPT can kind of help us a little bit in some areas. But yeah, so that's pretty much the trajectory of like where I started. Came from like a mindset of like computers are great, computers are cool, let's do this, and then took like a momentary lapse, which was like 10 years, and like focus on a different career, but came back and yes, the innovation that we're seeing in today's world is like we don't have to be the point of it, but if we can like at least learn and be on the sidelines utilizing code, like it feels like it's going to be more efficient for ourselves, and that's what ChatGPT is for as well. So it's like all about efficiency.
Cool. For people who are here who are, I mean, a lot of people in this group are pretty beginner. So can you shed some light on what you mean by like blockchain, Web3, and what that entails beyond maybe just like regular web development or something like that? Like explain to people sort of what that means to be a Web3 developer.
Yeah, of course. And like so it's, you know, even it depends on like how beginner you are, but I look at it as like an SDK, right? So like if you're just getting into coding and you want to implement something like Facebook login, right? Something very basic, or Twitter login, you're using an SDK, software developer kit. And all that is basically like Facebook has created all this code and they built like a little, I guess, like package on top of it. So it's like, oh, I just type in Facebook underscore login or Facebook capital L, like depending on your programming language. And then you add that to your code, and that will call all the crazy code that Facebook does. And so you're like, okay, Facebook login, super easy as a developer because you are writing other code. There's no reason for you to write all the intricacies inside, Facebook's login. Well, now we're doing something a little different called, wallet session or send transaction. So it's just like an SDK on top of a lot of architecture that's been extensively built, and I think that's where like because I've talked to a lot of Web2 developers and trying to bring them into Web3, and it's not that. Also, like let's do one thing straight. Web3 doesn't have to replace all of Web2. Some Web2 stuff should always be Web2. Like, I mean, it's just there's no reason to like convert everything. Like that's something that out of all these years, like it's just, so always like remember your roots or whatever, but yeah, so that's how I would like kind of like talk about that transitioning, is that like regardless of how it is, it's kind of the same framework, it's kind of the same stuff. It's not like, oh my god, this is something crazy, blah blah blah. It's just a different way to implement. It's all about integration.
So it's like basically just to like sort of recap what you said and make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So like the Facebook SDK is basically like, instead of doing like fetch requests and stuff like that, they're essentially giving you functions that you can call that do all that stuff in the background for you. And so with Web3, you're sort of acting as that layer of like, security, identity, that kind of stuff, and building that into regular web apps. Where people can engage using like cryptocurrency wallets. Is that correct?
Yes. And like there is another layer where it's like you actually write the smart contract, but from a higher level, it's like if I want to build a marketplace like OpenSea, if I like in fact OpenSea is such a prime example. A lot of like, well,
OpenSea is an NFT marketplace for people who don't know that yet.
So OpenSea is an NFT marketplace, the largest marketplace. Whole other conversation for another time, but all it does is just like call a smart contract. So you take your asset and you put that in escrow so you can buy and sell, but all that's doing is just like calling the contract just like you would call like the Facebook login, it's all very similar. It's just it has its own intricacies that
so to simplify, like the wallet's just a way to authorize.
In fact, wallets are hilarious because wallets are nothing more than a web client. It's not an actual wallet. The balance is on the blockchain. So I just a little background. I work in New York City. I work at it's called Station 3, a little shill, but like we're the biggest like Web3 ecosystem in the United States. And so many people are like, hey, we're creating this new wallet. It's like first off, it's not a wallet, it's a web client because the wallet's on chain. But so once again, it's like even if you build something that's on top of Facebook, it's not yours, you're still using that underlining aspect.
So let me ask you
a couple of things.
Go ahead, Randall.
There are a couple of things that I think it was important that Drew mentioned there. So like one was he was saying that he felt like he kind of missed the move of the initial Web 2, and I think a lot of people who are getting into web development feel that because they think they missed out on the .com bubble, or they missed out on this thing, or they missed out on 20 years of development.
Or you just feel behind.
So like
yeah.
you can relate. Yeah, you feel behind. But another thing you mentioned was you were also able to successfully transition careers. So this is something that's doable to move from one career into web development.
Yeah. And I was going to ask a question about that is like how, I mean, all of us sort of did that, right? We've all done a career shift at one time in our life, if not many times.
I can't believe me and you are chemists. That's like,
yeah, like dude. So like I've done so many different things in my life too. I've done sales, I've done digital marketing, I've done horticulture, I've done like everything under the sun. So can you, like, I think maybe we can all go around and share some tips on how you actually do that transition. Because it's one thing to say like, hey, I just went from chemistry to blockchain development, but like, how did you actually accomplish that? What were your sort of steps that you went through? Like, did you, find a company and then like get, an internship role, or what education did you go for? Like, how did you find your place in that? So I think Drew start, and then we can answer that too.
Yeah, because I was going to start because mine's a little bit more untraditional. So you guys probably have like better scenarios. Mine was like I had broken my leg and I had nothing else to do. So I was like kind of like, let's just figure out how to like prank people and automate stuff. But I guess I can like talk back on So that's how I initially got into coding. So it was a little bit more familiar to me, but I did go into medical, and then like I came back and I realized, hey, software is always like where it's at. And not that it's always where it's at. It's just a better way to automate and be more efficient. And so that's what brought me back. So like my initial like I guess like path to software is a little, like I said, untraditional because I just started early. I got lucky, but coming back so let's just like we'll come from that. So that coming back was just doing medical was great. It was awesome, but I also saw a lot of pain points. So I guess that's my trajectory, is that the pain points that I see, like we needed to record a lot of stuff. We were writing things down literally with pen and paper
using Excel.
This wasn't even Excel. It was bad. And so I actually wrote a program for us in medical to keep track of stuff. So that was kind of the path that I saw, is like, as an individual, you need to look at yourself and be like, hey, I'm doing this. I'm wasting 2 to 5 hours a day, right? And that's like times a week. So like now we're at like 14 hours a week of time that could be saved. And so it's not that like you should go out there and be a coder. You should go out there and just think how you could code in your head and how you can be more efficient.
Like how to solve problems, right?
Exactly. So so that was pretty much what brought me back in. So like after like chemistry, biology, all that stuff, I'm like, let's go back. And now I can like go back to like what I always felt was right and build stuff to help other people also like facilitate like efficiency.
So when you did like Web3, did you take a course? Did you self-teach? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, good question. So so once again, like I was like, if I don't make this, if I don't jump in this like new frontier, like I'm gonna miss something else. Good question. So to be honest with you, it was a lot of like headaches. I don't really watch YouTube. Just a lot of documentation, just trying to like hit stuff till it works, till it doesn't work. I'm still in that kind of realm because we're pioneers. But yeah, it was just basically just a lot of documentation.
Cool.
Find out what you want to do, and then the beautiful thing about Web3 is that it's transparent, right? So all the smart contract code is publicly available
out there. Yeah,
you can look at
all
it.
Open source.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's good. So like or audited. So like there's a lot of So to be honest with you, it's very difficult, and that's one of the things that I think should be an emerging field, and that's why coding is unlimited, it's infinite, and that's where people need to understand that like you can do anything you want, and like the possibilities are endless. But yeah, it's just it's still a learning process. So
yeah, for sure,
it always is. Yeah.
So like anybody who's new to coding, it's a great avenue that you can take is into Web3, because one, there's a lot of money in it, but also it's new, right? So you can be very quickly at the head of the field, right? It's not like you're doing like C++ development and there's like people who've been doing it for 30 years now. So if that is something that people are looking for, that's a great way. And I think, Drew is sort of saying like, you also don't necessarily have to do any sort of like boot camp or anything like that. I mean, I know I've done not the whole thing, but part of Alchemy University, which is like a free Web3 boot camp. And that's really good. So if people are looking into that, that's a good place to look. But you can learn a lot of it on your own too, just by, digging into it and using sources.
I didn't want to have to shill myself, but we do out in New York, we do a blockchain boot camp.
Oh, cool. There you go.
Nice.
That's one of the things.
We can throw a link in the group for that too.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to do. It's like, I've probably been in this industry for since 2017. And within 10 hours, 2 days, we teach you everything that like
that's sick. I want to do that.
That we wish we would have known. And we try to teach more like youth, so like high school, because it's just it's an emerging field. Like blockchains, like it's not a crazy technology. It's more about transparency. It's about like what it can do and how it can like help us be better people. And then I think that's also one of the reasons why I chose this field, because it's not traditional. It's like, oh, I can learn how to code and make money, blah blah. It's no, I can learn how to code, make money, and also like make society better.
Yeah, go ahead, Randall.
One of the things that I wanted to touch on that you said that I could really relate to is when you said it's a lot of headaches. Because I remember like learning, I went through so many resources, went through like courses on Udemy, went through books, went through blogs, went through YouTube videos, all did like certification exams, did a master's program, all this different stuff. And like when you said that, it made me remember, because so often you're studying, you're learning something new, and you don't understand it at all. And I remember like when I was younger, that would be the point where I would give up. But like once I decided that this was the direction that I wanted to go, I changed my mind to, okay, I'm not going to give up. I may put it down for today, but I'm going to come back and maybe in another direction, or maybe just try reading that again. Like a lot of the technical books that I read on programming, on cybersecurity, I still don't understand 100% of it. Like I'm lucky if I understand 50 to 80% of it, but I just continue going through it because it's a different mentality, which is how you gain the skills. Is just, I'm going to learn this. I'm not going to give up, as opposed to I'm going to let this beat me down.
Well, every time you do something new too, you have to learn to think differently. And I think that's the hardest thing for people, is like, that takes time. It does. Like,
and practice.
It takes a while to learn.
Practice.
Yeah. So this is chime in really quick, but yeah, exactly what you said, Randall. Like if we go back to when I was in 7th grade, and I was in love with coding, and I literally would just go to Barnes and Nobles, and here's I guess like time lapse or whatever, but
you're aging yourself.
I would just buy the biggest Windows API book. So I started Visual Basic, so it was Windows 95, and I would buy a book that was literally like this thick with every single function from Windows 95, and I was like, and I would just go through each page, and I could change the label, I could change the tab, and that's how like I started making Trojans. So I don't know, but anyways, but like that was it. Like once you're in that, once you understand it. But you're right, like if like there was so many headaches that like I couldn't get to that point, but that's the transition that you can make. And it's just once you're at that, it's just like anything like snowboarding, right? Like go down the bunny slopes, but like once you're like good, you're like, I'm doing triple blacks, I'm reading like Windows 95 API, all this stuff. But totally.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys, I'll start with you, Randall. Like, how did you go about choosing that you wanted to go into cybersecurity? Like, how did you make that decision? Because I think that's what a lot of people in the group are sort of deciding right now. Like there's obvious
dream
first
from a little
steps.
kid.
Yeah, like, you learn like the basic things like HTML, CSS, maybe Python, but then how like would you suggest people are like, okay, this is what I'm shooting for, like this is my end goal?
Well, so for me, it was the one thing that I thought I couldn't do. Like I thought in order to be a hacker, you had to be like some special type of like person. And I was like, I can do anything, but like that's just beyond the scope of what's possible for me. And so I had done a lot of stuff, and I was like, well, why not at least try? Because if I don't try, then I'll die never knowing. And so I just kept on going and going and going. And like kind of related to that point is I see a lot of people get stuck with like, what should I choose? And so before I got into cybersecurity, which is what I really enjoy, there were a lot of different avenues that I went down. Like when I was in undergrad, I learned C++, and then, you know, I learned Python and Go, and I did a whole bunch of, so like there's a whole bunch of side tracks that I went on and learned JavaScript and all this different stuff. Eventually, it's useful in cybersecurity. So like all of that stuff that you use, it's translatable. But for me, what I saw like the movie Hackers, I think in like the 90s or something.
Yeah,
like that.
that's a great movie.
So cool.
Like, literally, I had a broken leg in 7th grade. I watched some Hackers. I'm like, I'm moving to New York. I'm getting a computer, and
I'm buying glasses.
Behind glass.
Man, that is literally why I'm here today. That is literally.
Dude, that was the best. The way they
Awesome.
portrayed the hacking was awesome. That
Oh
movie,
yeah,
too. They're like,
private, Pac-Man, you know, yeah.
Maybe we should have like a hackers viewing session in the group.
Oh,
Yeah, right?
That movie, yeah.
Oh,
John-
God.
Hire some new age hackers.
Yeah. I watch that probably once a week, to be honest with you.
It's a good movie.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
How about you, Danny? How did you sort of make your decision of like, I want to become a developer, and then like what track you went on?
I mean, I always liked tech, and then like, you know, I just was pretty much unhappy with teaching with what I was doing. So, you know, I went back, and there was, you know, like I said, when I was in high school, I learned HTML. That was all that was available, right, to build web pages. So like, I knew there was a lot more out there, but I didn't know like necessarily what was out there. So like we did a boot camp together, which was helpful because we got to like kind of dip our feet into a lot of different new things that I didn't know existed, and that like I didn't know what they were for yet necessarily. But before that, I actually got a book on Python, and I just really liked how Python was written. And as I started learning it, and then we started learning other languages, I also quickly realized that, oh, they're all the same because the hardware is the same. So they all do functionally the same thing. They're just in different syntax, different things. So learning one's as good as basically learning any other, and then I can translate that to the next one as I'm learning it. And that helped me like kind of just focus on something and try and get good at it. And then I kind of got lucky because one thing that helped too was my partner's mom, she had a contract that she couldn't do because of her work was too busy. So I took over that. And then that was like a nice introductory where it was for a small company. So I had time. I could kind of learn while I was doing it. And that was awesome because it really helped. And I learned a ton just because doing's the best way to learn anything. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you made a good point there too. Regarding like all coding languages are ultimately the same, like deep down. And so if you are sort of new to software development and you can't make this decision yet, and you don't really have to, because just learning is going to sort of push you.
Learn one thing. Yeah. Learn
one thing.
Learn
and
one.
And really, like, I think deeper than that is just learning the core concepts of software development, like learning variables, learning like if statements, or, you know, like conditional statements, loops, things like that, like learning the core of how computers operate, because that, regardless of any language, they all do the same thing. Like,
I will say too, I guess like one of the things that I was lucky about is I teach philosophy, and like I've done a lot of logic. So like the logic part of computers was super easy because I already, that's basically symbolic logic. That's all they use. So it was like really easy for me to train, if anybody knows what the hell I'm talking about.
That's funny you said. I have a minor in philosophy, and like I took a logic class because like I come from an untraditional background. Like I literally have taken only one computer science course in all of my college out of 10 years. I took a logic class, and not only did I get 100 in it, but like I almost like started teaching it because I was like, you know, it was just so, because you're right. That's actually, I love how you put that, because at the end of the day, it just goes back to like ones and zeros. So I think that's like really like, that's really cool that like
everything has to be compiled in machine language at some point. So it's like, it can't be that functionally different.
But just start with assembly and you're good.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, but I think that's a good point. I mean, like, I remember when I was sort of getting into software development, I was like, man, this is a whole new sort of endeavor. And a lot of times we forget that basically everything that you do in your life somehow can relate back to software development and get you in the door, like with a new company, or, you know, like the experience that you have in the past, whatever job you're doing previously can be translated into software development, whether that's just like writing code that helps people in that field, or whatever, you have some specialized knowledge that you can bring into this, and create really cool things in software development.
Yeah, and like highlighting back on this, it's all about efficiency, right? So it's like, for me, one of the reasons why I got into coding, not only because I was like had a broken leg, I was immobile, I didn't have much to do, but it was all about efficiency and like automating things, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
obviously, like, we have a lot of stuff nowadays, like we're very high tech and advanced to automate a lot of stuff, but that doesn't mean that you have to rely on what we have, right? Like if there's something that you want to automate that like doesn't exist, you can use simple like coding languages like Python to build that and help you in your life. And so it's
totally.
not that you have to like jump in and be like, I'm a coder, but I think that everyone should at least like understand like how you can be more efficient and automate things. And then that's where you get into coding. And like I think that's where people will actually fall in love with the fact that like, hey, I can write something. It's just like being a writer. Like I, write a
Yeah.
movie, but like I can actually write this little program that does what I want. And that's where you get to be creative. And like it's a creative aspect that like, Russell, I call you a creator because you are. I don't really call myself a creator, but people call me a creator. But so it's like it's just being that creator mindset. And I think it's something that you can do that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean
It
that's.
is.
Go ahead, Randall. I know you're had something to add.
Well,
there.
I had a question for you guys. So if you wanted to follow up on that first.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
question.
I was gonna say no. I'll tell you real quick because I'll make it short. So yeah, like I really loved art too when I was a kid. So like that really helps me in front end development because I have sort of like a design eye and I can see like this looks good, this doesn't look good, and I can like understand it, and that interests me, right? So like driving towards the things that interest you will sort of like dig that path for you of like, this is where I'm gonna go.
It also keep you motivated too, yeah, and keep
Yeah,
you engaged in
exactly.
it, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Randall.
All right. So my question for you is like knowing what you guys know now and saying that you take this knowledge and you had to start over again. How
Mm,
would you start now?
mm.
If we had to relearn coding, you mean, like starting at the beginning?
Yeah, like if you wanted to get started as fast as possible, you like because now you know a lot, you kind of know the directions you're going. What would you do now to get in that direction, or would be just the general best way to start?
I'll just start this.
Mhm.
I don't want to do that because I think the headaches are the reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's me. Yeah. I don't think that I don't think I could do anything different because it's fun learning on a different wavelength and a different I don't know. It's yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, I would
Enough.
say like if I were knowing the knowledge that I have now, if I were like not a software developer going into software development now, I think the first thing I would do is sort of like journal a little bit and like brain dump like what are all the experiences I have, what are the things that I've been happiest with, like most motivated by, and maybe even like what company or companies I would want to work for and what I would want to do in those companies first, right? So like I've worked for like tourism companies in the past and I always enjoyed that because people are always happy in that field. Like it's very like
Yeah.
hard to find people who are like pissed off and like on vacation.
Going on
right?
vacation, yeah.
So like yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like that's something like maybe I would want to do is like work for like a tourism company. I know it's like weird, but in like software development, but yeah, like things like that, sort of just brain dump like what experiences do you have that you can bring to the table, and then what do you like doing, what would make you motivated, and then from there, I posted this in the group I think yesterday. I heard this and it sort of makes a lot of sense, right? Like if you're looking to work for a certain company, or do a particular thing, look at the companies who are in that field. Like let's say you want to work in, I don't know, like with Airbnb, right? I want to work for Airbnb. So it makes sense to look at the job listings that Airbnb is posting out there and what technologies they're looking for, and even like look at their own tech stack and say like what technologies are they using, because it doesn't make sense to learn, JavaScript if they're using PHP or something like that, right? It's
Yeah.
like so looking at those. And then the other thing that I thought was really cool is, right now it's very difficult to just find a job in software development if you just go on LinkedIn and just press easy apply to like that's what everyone does and it won't get you
Yeah.
anywhere, right? So like this other suggestion was write something like write a piece of code that integrates with this company somehow or does something with the tech stack that they're already using, and then network with the people in that company and be like, hey, I built this tool that like tracks cruise ships around the world or something like that, you know? So like if you're going to work for like Royal Caribbean or something like that,
Yeah.
it's more interesting to them than just like, hey, I've done all this other stuff. I know these coding languages. Like, great, everybody knows these coding languages, but we want to see people who can like put something into action that's like relevant to us, right? So
Yeah.
I would
So-
suggest that.
So yeah, now I need to go back and contact Google, Facebook, and Microsoft and Amazon and be like, okay, this is why I didn't get the job. But here's the
Yeah.
that's actually
Yeah.
that's a really good idea, Russell.
Yeah. How about you, Danny? Let's.
I mean, I would say like, I mean, I'm not unhappy with how I got into it, I guess, in the direction I took. Like, I mean, even though like I didn't love the boot camp, but I thought it was good because I did get, I got experience with all these different languages that I didn't know. I mean, so one thing I would suggest is like, if you're just getting into it, do some research, look at what companies are using, like you said, look at what's out there, and just kind of get like, understand like, what are these languages primarily used for? What are they primarily, like, what industries tend to use them, because they all have different kind of applications, and just kind of get an understanding of that, because like there's so much out there, but like you don't have to get bogged down by that either. You're just starting out, you need to learn something well, and then you go from there. Everything else is easier because you already understand how it works.
Yeah, and I was gonna like shed light on that. It's like if I want to, if I want to make mobile apps and like learn either JavaScript or Swift or Android Java, but if I want to like do finance and like do in the back end, like learn Python. So it's just kind of like what you feel and what you want to do, and like that's where when I teach people how to code, that's the first thing I ask them, like, what do you really want to get out of this? And they're like,
Yeah.
well, I want to do this. And it's like, okay, well then we're going to learn Python. So it's like kind of just make sure that you have that focus. If you're, because once you get older, you don't have that much time. So it's like we don't have time to learn all the languages. We don't have time to like learn all the infrastructure, but we do have some time, and that time can be dedicated to like where you're trying to go.
I make one other point too, is just like, I think it's also helpful too, just to get like even if you don't like, if you're going to do front end, get a high level understanding of full stack and back end. Get a high level understanding of these different ways you can apply code, because it is so helpful to understand how your stuff is going to at least basically interact with the rest of the ecosystem, and to understand that makes you a much better coder. So I think it is helpful to do that too. Like, I like reading books on like machine learning and stuff. Even though I'm not necessarily doing that right now, it's fun. I enjoy it. And I get to see how other things are being implemented, which helps me both generate ideas, but also just understand the whole kind of thing,
I was gonna say, Russell, you can talk on this. Like, even when you see UX stuff, like the UX designer doesn't know, like, oh, I forgot the error message. And it's like, that's still a lot of stuff that's going on because we have to build all that background. So it's like, yeah, you're 100% right on that. It's like having a little understanding of like how the whole system works itself.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even like, you think about things like front end, right? You're like making forms and stuff like that. But then you have to sort of think about, okay, how is that data being structured on the back end so that when I move that information from a form to a database, like we're doing that in an efficient way. So, yeah.
And then Rand, like, are you using API keys? Because that's just.
Yeah. Expose API keys. Yeah, right on. Well, we're hitting about 30 minutes now, so just want to wrap it up. If you guys have any final thoughts, we can take those. Otherwise, thank you so much, Drew, for joining us today, and super helpful. I think a lot of people in the group will get a lot out of today's talk. And yeah, anyone have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like shoot for your dreams.
There you go. Shoot for your dreams.
That's a good way. That's a good one.
Quote Drew.
I was
put that
gonna
on
say,
a coffee cup.
just
Yeah,
get started.
Shoot for my dreams. Sorry.
Shoot for your dreams. Get started and do it consistently. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's all about
shoot for your dreams.
Yeah, definitely practice. Like I've probably written, I don't know how many millions of lines of code, and like it's just it's all about experience at this day. It's just like playing pool, like you can't get good unless you try it. And I'm an educator with blockchain, and like we don't just tell you like the history and all that. We do that, but like we're more hands-on. Like it's more kinetics, like especially with programming needs to be more kinetics. Like yes, it can, I think to be honest with you, when I started, it was all kinetics because we didn't have any education. Like it was so early. It's like you had to get documentation from the actual company that you were trying to surveillance. So yeah, so I think it's all kinetics, and it's like, it's just riding a bike, riding a skateboard, playing a guitar. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and you start realizing that you can like start creating stuff. Like even with the guitar, like you're writing music, you're playing this, you can start doing that programming. That's where it just becomes like infinite and unlimited.
Yeah, I would also just add too, like if you're switching industries, like we've all done, like, remember why you're doing it too. Like remember like that this is important and you wanted to do it because you were unhappy with what you were doing. Keep that in mind to motivate yourself to keep going,
Yeah, that's a good point.
And
awesome.
I was gonna say, like, and while you're unhappy, those pain points can be solved by coding. Because
yes.
Right on. Very cool. Well, thank you guys for tuning in today. We'll be back next Saturday at 9 a.m. Yeah. And if you have any questions for us, throw them in the comments below. I see a couple of comments there already. Not questions, but if you do have questions about today's talk, throw them in there. We'll be happy to answer those for you. Cool. Well, thank you guys and peace out. Have a great week.
Later.
Yes.